Welcome to the eShopper Reviews Podcast, Episode 20. This is the podcast for November 2022. I'm Jen Ip.
And I'm Jake McNeil.
For those new to this podcast, eShopper Reviews is a subreddit on reddit.com where Jake reviews games on the Nintendo Switch platform, and you can find this subreddit at the URL reddit.com/r/eShopperReviews. We currently have over 2,000 reviews and counting, and we are supported by your donations on our Patreon, which you can find at patreon.com/eShopperReviews. This month's sponsors are Andy Miller, Xleen, Johannes, Homer Simpin, Ilya Zarev, Eli Goodman, Christopher Wolf, Gabriel Coronado Medina, Francis Ops, and Seth Christianfeld. Thank you all for helping to keep the reviews coming. Now on to the patron-voted games, which are...
We're continuing on with the previous month. We actually introduced a few different... So we have our regular monthly vote, and then we have our all-patron budget vote. So we have games for both of those. First of all, for our patron-voted games, we have a tie between... Did you want to introduce them, or shall I?
Yes! Actually, I've played both of these.
In a manner of speaking, you played the demo for one of them.
Mm-hmm. So the tie is It Takes Two and Harvestella.
Yeah, you played It Takes Two on, what, PC?
Yes.
Of course, because you play everything on PC.
Mm-hmm. And you and I both played the demo for Harvestella.
Yeah. One of the things I love about Square Enix these days is so often with their games, they will make it so nice and convenient to review their games because they have a demo where the save file from the demo transitions into the full game. So you can kind of get a head start on the game before it's even released. And that's really great.
That is really great.
So as far as which of these games I will review, I've always said when it comes to ties on these votes, I am the tiebreaker. And I've kind of already indicated it's a little easy for me to go for games that have that kind of demo to full game save transition thing. But the fact that it's easy doesn't necessarily mean that's what I'll do. So I'm not saying just yet which of these two games I will review, but one of these two, these are both games that come out within the month of November. One of these two games I will review, and I guess you'll find out which one when it comes time for me to post a review sometime within the first few weeks of the month.
You also have Robbie's Adventure.
Yes, this is the all-patron budget-voted game, and I don't know much about this one. Well, okay, I'm kind of being a little facetious, if I'm perfectly honest, because I saw this game was going to win the vote. I already got the game. I've already played it to review it. And I've already reviewed it, and the review is just waiting to be posted. It will again be posted sometime within the first few weeks of the month. Yes, I'm going to make you wait because I'm mean like that. But also because I have a theme week running when we're posting this. Mm-hmm. So when the theme week is over, at some point after that, I'll post a review for this. And I'm not going to say what I thought about it in this podcast. I will only say that going into this game, I knew nothing about it. It looked like it could be interesting. Maybe it could be good. I don't know. You'll find out next month what I thought about it.
So, next month's vote is also the end of year special.
Yes, because this will be the last pair of patron votes for the year. You know, when we do next month's, it won't be decided until the end of December. So at that point, it'll be too late to do anything within the year 2022. So I wanted to do something special for both the regular monthly patron vote and for the all patron budget vote, which is I made a list for the patron vote of all of the biggest or highest rated games of the year, including games that haven't come out yet. And I'm going to give the option to, basically I'm going to have a pair of votes for both of these. One only for the $5 patrons in this case, like I normally do, and one that will be open to everyone, patrons and non-patrons alike. And I'm going to be combining these two votes to come up with two titles. So there is a massive list of games here. There's something like over 20 games in this list, and I think over 20 games in this second list, but we'll get to the second list in a moment, because I had a different criteria for the other list.
Oh.
So did you want to go over the end of year special, just the standard monthly vote.
Sure.
Let's see how many of these titles you mess up.
Oh my gosh. I'm so glad you have so much faith in me. 13 Sentinels, Aegis Rim. AI, the Somnium Files Nirvana Initiative. Bayonetta 3. Bacon Pines?
Beacon Pines. Beacon, like
a
beacon in the dark, or a beacon.
Beacon Pines.
Yes.
There I go, already messing it up. Dragon Quest Treasures, Factorio, Nier Automata End of Yura Edition, No Man's Sky, Oddworld Soulstorm, Ollie Ollie World, Persona 5 Royale, Portal Companion Collection, Return to Monkey Island, Sifu, Sonic Frontiers, Tactics Ogre Reborn, The Legend of Heroes Trails from Zero, The Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe, Tinykin, Tunic, and 2 Point Campus.
So, all of these games are either games that have an 85 Metacritic score or higher, or they are games that have not yet come out, as of this recording anyway, but have a lot of buzz behind them, or there's another version that got really high ratings. All of these are games that I have not yet reviewed, and they are games that I have not yet made plans to review. So you'll notice there are a few games that are major releases that have not made this list, and there's a reason for that, and it's because maybe I have other plans for them. Or in the case of Advance Wars, it's because who the heck knows when it's even going to come out. I hope that Advance Wars 1+2 Reboot Camp does make it out sometime in our lifetimes, but given the situation around the war in Ukraine and all that stuff, who even knows? So I don't know about that one. I'm not going to commit to Advance Wars, but all of these other games, I figure these are some of the biggest games of 2022 that I have not yet reviewed. And so hopefully in time for the end of year award kind of stuff that I tend to do in January, hopefully I will have gotten out of the way the biggest titles that not just I'm interested in, but that you are interested in as well. I'm giving you guys the opportunity, both my patrons and non-patrons alike, to get your voices heard and vote for some games that you want to see me review. So after that...
So, what's the deal with the all-patron budget game vote then?
So I started the all-patron budget game vote last month, you'll recall. That was what Robbie's Adventure came from. And this was out of my desire for all the patrons, not just the $5 and up people, but all of them, to have a chance to vote on me to review something. And it was also simultaneously a chance for me to start reviewing some of these $1 and $2 games that I never buy because they never go on sale. I figured this is kind of one of those two birds, one stone sort of things.
Okay.
But because I want to do something special for the end of the year thing, I'm doing something similar here. And what I did was I looked at the entire release calendar for 2022.
Oh, wow.
I didn't just go for every single game that was $2 and under. I specifically went for which of these games look like they could possibly have been good or interesting at least. So all of the games on this list I looked at and I'm like, well, I don't know anything about it, and none of these games I know anything about. I don't know anything about it, but maybe it could be good or interesting at least. I don't know. So, Jen, let us proceed through the list. Yes, that's right. I'm making you read
it. Alien Destroyer, Ball Rush, Beanie, Blue Buffo, Disco Cannon Airlines. That's a great title. Drowning Cross, Escape Lala, Retro Point and Click, Adventure. Okay.
That's all part of this.
Yeah. Heroic Pirates, Horror Stories, Ink Cipher, Pocket Rockets, Rocket Cows. Rocket Cows?
Yes, Rocket Cows.
Road 10 Zero, Smash Star, Spin Path, The Rusty Sword Vanguard Island, Tibrolin?
Yeah, I don't know how it's pronounced.
Toon Cars Racer, Treasure Hunter Man 2, Unstrong Legacy, Vampire Dungeon, Windmill Engine.
Yeah, you mostly did okay for that, I think.
What I have a problem, I know this is a bit of a tangent. I have a problem with a lot of these titles because they are so generic.
For the ones that have a generic sounding title, like Alien Destroyer sounds pretty generic.
Mm-hmm. Or Heroic Pirates, or Horror Stories.
Yeah, but when I saw the screenshots of them on the eShop, I'm like, okay, maybe this could be good.
Yeah, and I figured that's what went into your decision.
Yeah.
But goodness, some of these...
Or conversely, for some of them, I'm like, well, I'm not sure about these screenshots, but that's a clever premise for a game, or that's a cute title. And again, I know nothing about these games. I've not played any of these on PC or any other platforms.
I've never heard of any of these.
No, you wouldn't, because they're $1 and $2 games.
Yeah.
Who's heard of any of them? But that's just it, is this is a chance for maybe something good and obscure to come up out of nowhere. On that note, I am going to be talking about the game that I reviewed this month for the all Patron budget game vote. And suffice it to say, I was really surprised by it.
Really?
We'll get to it in a bit.
Oh, okay then. So now we're going to talk about the highlights that eShopper reviews covered in the month of October 2022. Just a note, these are not necessarily games released in September, but games reviewed in the last month, and we'll start by talking about...
Sorry, my mistake. Not games that we reviewed in the month of October, but because I have a file that I'm supposed to edit and I messed up. So that's my mess up. That's my goof.
Someone did an oopsie.
Yes, I did an oopsie. Sorry, people. Jake is not perfect.
Okay.
Jake is more perfect than Jen, but Jake is not perfect.
How dare you?
Okay. So, since you like to shake things up, what are we starting with?
We're going to start with the noteworthy reviews.
The noteworthy reviews.
And the first one is Splatter Zombie Apocalypse Now.
Splatter Zombie-Apocalypse Now, which is not to be confused with Splatter, which is a completely different game not related to this. I should note first, this was a game that I was given the review code by Untold Tales, and regardless of what I think of the game itself, I always really appreciate when these developers and publishers reach out and give me a review code, because
Thank you.
It gives me a chance to review stuff I might not have done otherwise. So before I even talk about the game, thank you, Untold Tales. I really appreciate it. And also, I say this so that everyone can know, yes, this is a review code that was given to me, so if you think that might have biased my opinion, well, now you know at least. However, I don't think that this biased my opinion. I gave it a fair shake, and ultimately I came away from this game thinking it was a pretty darn fun two-stick shooter. Graphically, it's not super impressive, but it's not horrible either. It is actually an old game. It was originally released on the PC, I want to say maybe a decade ago. It's been out for a little while. But while the graphics mostly aren't super impressive, it does have some really good lighting effects in it. However, mainly I was looking at the gameplay, and the gameplay for the campaign mode is pretty darn fun. It doesn't do anything super original or unique, but it's just a good two-stick shooter. It does have some multiplayer modes, and Jen, you and I tried these out at one point.
If I remember correctly, yes.
And it basically has a multiplayer mode that's kind of a co-op thing and a multiplayer mode that's competitive.
Yeah.
And I will say right now, the multiplayer competitive mode is just trash. It's terrible.
It was pretty bad, I would say.
It has you in a single screen arena, and it gives everyone a long warning when you're about to spawn, which basically means that everyone knows exactly where to target.
So time to set up and shoot.
Yeah, it's very poorly conceived. The multiplayer co-op is a bit better. Mm-hmm. It's kind of a similar idea. It's a single screen arena type of thing where you're trying to fend off wave after wave of invading zombies. And potentially really fun, but there's a couple of problems with this as well. First of all, if one of the players dies, there's no way to revive them. It's just them waiting for the other player or other players to die while they sit and twiddle their thumbs.
Mm-hmm.
The other issue I have with the co-op in this game is there's no way to do the campaign in co-op. And I feel like this could be a really fun game to do a co-op campaign in, because the campaign's actually pretty fun. Unfortunately, not available. Still, for the single-player campaign, if you're just looking for a fun two-stick shooter, pretty darn good.
All right. And then the other noteworthy review is, which I've been playing.
You and I both played this together as well. Yes.
Overwatch 2.
Which I think we both kind of agreed more or less should basically be called Overwatch 1.5.
Yeah. So, honestly, on the PC, it looks more or less the same. The UI is a little bit different. There are some special effects that are a little bit different.
I mean, the same for the Nintendo Switch version.
Yeah.
And I know that some people see the Nintendo Switch version as, oh, that's unplayable. How can I play at those low resolutions? But honestly, as far as I'm concerned, Overwatch 2, much like Overwatch 1, is actually a pretty darn good-looking first-person shooter on Nintendo Switch. And that's largely because the cartoonish art style works really well with the lower resolutions and all that kind of stuff. It makes it so it still looks really nice. However, we're not getting into the Overwatch. I've already reviewed Overwatch 1.
Yep.
So then the question becomes, what changed for Overwatch 2? And in my opinion, the biggest change, the only major change, at least until they make the PvE stuff a main part of the game, is it went free to play. Which, if you haven't bought the game before now, that's huge. That means, hey, you can finally play it and you don't need to spend a single penny. But they also changed the monetization somewhat, as I understand it. Like, instead of being loot boxes, now there's the whole season pass thing. And
and from somebody that played Overwatch 1, the prices of the skins now are insane. Insane.
And honestly, it kind of feels like Activision Blizzard gave the finger to people who owned the previous game. Oh, you bought and paid for Overwatch 1? That's nice. We're not giving you anything for it.
So I still have access to previous skins that I've gotten.
Yeah, that doesn't mean anything.
That's pretty much it.
If you paid $60 to buy Overwatch 1 the day before it went free to play, you get nothing for it.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah.
That's how it goes.
It is, and for any game that goes from a paid game to free to play, that's just kind of one of the things you got to put up with in it. But at the very least, usually they'll try and give you some kind of compensation for being an early adopter. And not in this case.
Mm-hmm.
I would still say, now that it's gone free to play, it's one of the best free games on the Nintendo Switch.
I'd have to agree.
I would say, if you're looking for a super popular free-to-play game, Rocket League is really great. I know that you're not a big player of Paladins, Jen, but I kind of feel
I've heard of it.
Paladins would probably be right up your alley. It's basically a lot like Overwatch, except it's free-to-play. Oh, but Overwatch is free-to-play now, too.
Mm-hmm.
However, on the Nintendo Switch, they actually have, if memory serves, 60 frames per second on Paladins, where Overwatch, I think, is just 30. So...
Ooh. That actually matters to me.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, again, I feel like it's not a horrible sacrifice. I feel like the game still looks and runs great, given the limitations of the hardware. But I can also understand how people who are huge fans of the game, and specifically who play it on PC, could take one look at that and go, yeah, no, I'm not doing that.
All right. Let's move on to the worst game, starting with S.U.M. Slay Uncool Monsters.
So I might be being unfair to this game, because when I started having problems with this, I looked around online to see, okay, is anyone else having these issues that I'm having? And it actually seemed like I was maybe the only one, I don't know. But at the same time, I can only review the game that I have in front of me. And the game that I have in front of me for S.U.M. Slay Uncool Monsters is literally unplayable. The menus junk up and everything freezes into like the first or second battle. I tried quitting the game and restarting it, same thing. Restarting my Switch, same thing. It's I don't know what's wrong with this game, for me at least, but since I can't play it, there's no way I could possibly ever recommend it. Which is sad because I love the premise of this game. It's like an RPG, but using math to defeat monsters.
Oh, no, thank you. I'm good. I'm good. All right, so the next game for worst games is Zombie Vital DG.
This is another one where I love the premise and hate the execution. This is a game where the premise is you are basically a dungeon master, like, in Dungeons and Dragons or something like that. And you are specifically in charge of designing your own dungeons for entering adventurers with the goal of you want them to be challenging, but not so much that it's discouraging. So you're kind of trying to make a fun, balanced dungeon for these adventurers to go into. And you have the ability to basically carve into the earth the way that you want this dungeon to go. Really, really great idea. And man, I wish that it was as good as it had the potential to be, but it is just horrible. First of all, graphically, it is horrendous. It is a port of an old PC game, and it looks like it's 10 years older than the 10-year-old or whatever it is game that it is. It's nasty looking. The options that you have for actually creating the dungeons are ridiculously limited. You only have a few monsters to choose from, at least at the start. Your options for creating the dungeons are you can only carve them out of the earth. You can't place down rooms or anything. You don't have options for traps. You don't have, there's nothing like that. And on top of all this, the localization is horrible. There's no question that this was designed for a non-English speaking audience and that they didn't bother to get a native English speaker to translate it. Mm-hmm. And the pathfinding for the characters is horrible too. Your monsters who are supposed to be patrolling the dungeons will instantly get stuck in the walls and start wandering within the walls. It would be laughably bad if it wasn't that they were charging money for this. It's horrible. Do not be tricked into buying this game. It's not worth playing.
Next one is Vaster Claws 3.
I believe this is by the same developer as Zombie Vital DG.
Ooh.
So that should give you an idea. This one is more of a Diablo-style top-down action RPG, but again, it's just horrible. Once again, terrible localization. Once again, the graphics are really, really archaic and ugly looking. But on top of that, this game is just dull and repetitive and dull and dull and boring and dull. And you're talking about a console that has really great Diablo-style games, including a couple of Diablo games.
Yep.
Why on earth you would waste your time with this when you could be playing Diablo 3 or Children of Morta or one of multiple other better games? No. Run away from this one fast. Do not play Vaster Claws 3.
Last one is Flying Girl Striker.
I think this might be by the same publisher. I'm not sure if it's by the same developer. This one's bizarre. If I were to describe this game, picture a game like Star Fox, where it's kind of an on-rails space shooter kind of thing, mm-hmm. but with a girl standing on top of the ship, which, okay, that's memorable, I guess. It gives it a different aesthetic. Couple of problems, though. First of all, having a girl standing on top of the ship might look cute, but it also means that your ship and the girl on it are now blocking more of the stuff that you're supposed to be shooting at, so you can't see it.
Exactly.
But even worse than that is the fact that, okay, you have two weapons. You have a laser and you have a heat-seeking missile. The laser, it's almost impossible to hit your target. You can try putting the target on the enemy. No, doesn't work. You can try leading the target in front of the enemy. No, doesn't work. You might get a few hits in, but it's like, put your hands together, pray, make a wish, and maybe occasionally you will hit the enemy if you're shooting at them with your lasers. Mm-hmm. Alternately, you can use the heat-seeking missile, which always hits its target. And you have enough of them that it's slow, but you can just, okay, fire a missile, fire a missile, fire a missile. And then you're not even really trying to play the game. Maybe you're dodging a little, but that's it. And it's like, if your only choices are miss all the time or miss never, what is even the point of playing this game? No, don't.
Okay, let's move on to the hidden gems.
Yes.
The first one is Words with Friends.
So this was the all patron budget voted game for the month. I said
it was very fun.
I was really genuinely surprised. So this is a game, it's not much to look at. It's pretty much just black screen with a bunch of letters on it, and the squares behind the letters change color to denote how successful you are in guessing things. The basic idea is, picture a combination of Hangman and Mastermind. If you've ever played the board game Mastermind, where you put colored pegs into holes,
Sure.
and then the other person tells you which ones you've guessed the right one in the right position or the right one in the wrong position.
Mm-hmm.
So same thing here. You have a 5-letter word, and every game starts exactly the same. And the games are usually over pretty quick. It's just, maybe a couple minutes. You have, I believe, 6 guesses to guess a randomized 5-letter word. And you can only do this by guessing 5-letter words. So what did I say? I think one of the words that I tended to use to guess was stare or rate or something like that, because it uses S and T and R and A and E, which are all super common letters. And then it will tell you, okay, you have this letter is correct. It is in this word and it's in the right place. This letter is in this word, but it's not in the right place. And then using that, you have to guess another word that might be closer to the correct one until you can deduce within 6 guesses what the hidden word is.
It's very fun to play with other people too.
It's fun. It's simple. It's not multiplayer, just to clarify. Yeah. But, Jen was in the room while I was playing it, and she was kind of helping me to guess too. Not that I needed her help, but we're having fun.
Yeah. Jeez.
So this game was designed by the same developer that made the simple platformer series called Love. There was another title for the second one, and then Love 3. And they're all super simple, super challenging platformers. This game is not that. There's no time limit. There's nothing like that. And I think it's just a $1 game. It's super, super, super cheap. But I would say if you like puzzle games, and especially if you like word puzzles, oh my goodness, this is so worth the $1 or $2 that it is.
Oh, yeah.
As my very first budget patron vote game, I don't think we could have possibly started with a better one. This one really surprised me, and I have no problem saying this is definitely one of the hidden gems for the month, if not my favorite hidden gem for this month.
Okay, so the other hidden gem is Undead Horde.
I was talking earlier about how the Nintendo Switch has a lot of good Diablo-style games. And this is another one that is a good Diablo-style game, but it kind of has a twist.
Mm-hmm.
And that twist is this. You play as an undead necromancer who can raise the bodies of the dead to become a part of your little army. And so as you're fighting enemies, when you kill them, you can raise them and then they become a part of your force.
Mm-hmm.
And so a large part of the strategy of this game is deciding which of these troops you want to have join your army, because you only have a limited capacity to control your troops, and more powerful troops take up more of that capacity. And that's one of the stats that grows as you proceed through the game. So you get a bigger and bigger and stronger and tougher and beefier army as you keep going. I thought it was a really great spin on the formula. You still have standard Diablo-ish style elements, like, you get equipment that you can equip, new weapons that you can put on, stuff like that. I wish there were more opportunities to grind in this game so you weren't constantly depending on, like, you would run into situations, this is what really frustrated me, where you maybe had underestimated your opponent, or maybe you brought the wrong forces into battle, are completely obliterated, and then you have to walk your happy butt back home so that you can raise another army. Because while you can raise the dead that are around you, if you've already done that a couple of times and you've just raised them too many times and so their skeletons are all obliterated or whatever, and if you don't have anyone left to raise at that point, it's like, well, I guess I got to go home and get a new army.
Oh my goodness.
And that's not fun. But apart from that element, I really enjoyed this game. I thought it was a fun spin on the standard Diablo-style formula. I definitely recommend it.
All right. Let's move on to the best games. And
Yes.
we will start with Mario plus Rabbids Sparks of Hope.
Man, I was not expecting to like this game as much as I did.
I did not expect you to like it at all.
Really?
Yeah.
I liked the first one.
I don't know. It was just...
So, Mario plus Rabbids Kingdom Battle came out some years ago, and it kind of surprised everyone because it was a really bizarre combination. Combining Mario and then the Rabbids, in and of itself, is kind of a weird pairing. But then on top of that, saying, okay, and what we are going to do is, these guys are going to be shooting enemies in an XCOM-style strategy RPG. And I'm sure everyone's response was,
What?
who asked for this? Everyone was kind of looking at this funny, like, this is just the most silly, bizarre idea. And then the game came out and people played it and they were like, oh, actually, this is really good. This is way better than it has any right to be. And I feel like that's true as well, but I also didn't fall in love with it like a lot of other people did. Like, I saw the appeal. I thought it was much better than it seemed based on the premise, but it didn't really click with me like it seemed to do with a lot of others. So the sequel got announced, and now everyone's like, well, the first game was great, so the second game's probably going to be great too. And I was like, yeah, probably. And I'm probably also not going to be super impressed with it. That's fine. Fine, whatever. I will still play it. I'll give it a fair shot. And right from the start, I loved this game. It was so great. And worlds better than the first one in so many ways. And the one that surprised me the most was in terms of the presentation and the story, oddly enough. And by story, specifically, I mean the characters. So, for those who aren't aware, you have your Mario characters, you know, Mario, Luigi, Peach, all those guys.
Mm-hmm.
In addition to that, the other characters you control are kind of warped versions of the Mario characters where they've, like Jeff Goldblum's The Fly, have been mashed together with the Rabbids, the little screaming rabbit things, you know, kind of like the minions from the Despicable Me movies. And so in the first Mario plus Rabbids game, you know, they all had their funny little unique traits, but, you know, those were interspersed with them doing the whole, you know, rabbit screaming thing. And it was funny, it was fun, it was cute and all, but it didn't, like, you know, that's just the Rabbids. That's nothing new for me. So, you know, whatever, it's fine. It is what it is. In this game, all of that rabbit screaming stuff, that's been toned down, actually. And they've actually played up a lot of the individual personality traits of these unique, weird little rabbit mashup characters. And the result is marvelous. They come across like Funhouse mirror versions of the like almost like bad parodies, like people who only vaguely know what the Mario characters are. Except I'm not saying that the people who designed this game don't understand Mario characters, because the Mario characters are in there and they're portrayed just fine. They act like their normal selves. But it's like you have Rabid Mario, who is constantly trying to act macho and impress everyone.
Oh my goodness.
You have Rabid Luigi, who's constantly mischievous and scheming and playing pranks on everyone. But the real star of the show, the scene stealer, my favorite character, possibly my favorite character of any game this year, is Rabid Peach, who is constantly acting like everything going around her is really a secondary consideration to her being a digital media fiend. And like she's constantly being like, you know, oh, where's my TikTok? Or, you know, taking selfies of herself with her defeated enemies. There's this one scene where all of the Mario characters and all the Mario Rabbids characters jump through a waterfall heroically, and they're all striking a heroic pose, and their wind is flowing through the air. And suddenly the Mario characters kind of like get this funny look on their faces like, what the heck is it? And they look over and they see the reason that their wind is blowing in the hair is because Rabbid Peach is using a hair dryer to make sure that she looks fantastic for her little...
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
It's so great. And that's just the presentation. They've upgraded so much of this game from the actual gameplay when you're in a battle is no longer entirely grid-based. Now, whenever your character has an action, they have a circle that appears around them, and they can do whatever they want within that circle. And it's open to a lot of exploitation, where you can have them move over, do something, move over again to a different spot and do something else, and switch back and forth between the characters while they're doing it. So it's like, I'm going to move all my characters over here so Rabid Peach can heal them. Now I'm going to move them over here so I can have one character jump from one to the other so that they can get across the entire map so they can do this. And then I'm going to have the characters move back so they can use their abilities to do this. And I love how the game really gives you that opportunity to just exploit the heck out of it to completely ruin your opponents. And on top of that, it gives you all sorts of abilities to customize your characters because there are these new spark characters, which are kind of like, they augment your abilities, where you can equip a spark to a character and now all their attacks have a fire effect. Or maybe now they heal themselves more when they do healing or whatever. And on top of this, you're no longer forced to have Mario in your team. You can make your team whatever the heck you want it to be.
Oh, yay!
Thankfully. So I know, kind of seems obvious. But in the first game, every fight you had to have Mario there. And so it's like the game made the battles better. They made it so you could do more fun stuff and really, like, if you wanted to, you can get deep into the mechanics of it to do some really cool stuff. They made the character customization a little bit more malleable so you can really customize it to your liking. And then they made the characters more likable too. And there's just so much about this game that I'm super pleased with. It is, without question, in my mind, one of my favorite games of the year. And it is an instant contender in my mind for Game of the Year.
Wow.
Yeah. And I would not have said that about the first Mario plus Rabbids game. The first Mario plus Rabbids game, I liked. I didn't love it, but I liked it. This one, magnificent. I cannot say enough good things about it. It's wonderful.
Next up is Guardian Tales.
So, Mario plus Rabbids surprised me because it was way better than I expected.
Mm-hmm.
Guardian Tales surprised me because it came out of absolutely nowhere. I had no idea what to expect with it. This is a free-to-play game that I had not heard a single thing about. And I'm like, well, it's free-to-play, so it'll cost me nothing to download it and play it and review it. Fine, whatever. And wow, it is a really great, it's kind of a little bit like a Zelda-style game, one of the old-fashioned top-down Zelda-style games, I should clarify. But it's a little more linear, it's level-based, and you can collect characters, you can grind the characters out if you want to make them more powerful. But the level design is really good. The plot, the story, and the writing are all really excellent and funny, like making all kinds of little in-jokes and pop culture references and stuff, and really good character humor as well. And the music is fantastic in this game. Like, so many elements of this game are way better than you would expect from a free-to-play game. A free-to-play game does not have to have writing as good as what's in this game. A free-to-play game does not have to have music that is as wonderful as what this game has. The only thing that kind of gives me some pause is, being that it's free-to-play, the monetization is really yucky. Some nasty stuff in there. I'll just leave it at that. All kinds of like loot boxes, and I think if memory serves, there are weight mechanics, just not great. But if you can put up with that junk, this game is well worth it. It is fantastic. It's funny, I played multiple free-to-play games this month, and I would say this was my favorite of the lot. Much more than Overwatch 2.
Interesting.
Granted, It plays nothing like Overwatch 2, but
Dying Light Definitive Edition.
I was not expecting this port to be as good as it is. Dying Light, for those who aren't aware, it is an open-world zombie game.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people have kind of half-jokingly referred to it as the open-world zombie parkour game. Because the main gameplay that you're playing through much of the game is you're trying to avoid fights. And how you avoid fights is basically you stay to rooftops. You can dip down to the streets for a moment if you find a good clearing to do so, but generally you want to stay up above where the zombies can reach most of the time. And so that means you're constantly picking out paths in the environment that will keep you off the streets as much as possible, which is a really kind of fun creative take on, well, zombie games in general. Much of the gameplay of Dying Light has you focused on this parkour, trying to jump from rooftop to rooftop kind of stuff. I was a little disappointed that, it has some scavenging for food and supplies and that kind of stuff, but not nearly as much as I wanted. I really wanted, since this was an open world game, I wanted a level of scavenging, comparable to, I want to say Skyrim or something, where you can go into any house or whatever and there's a ton of stuff to steal. Or at the very least, you'd walk through a neighborhood and it's littered with stuff. And granted, I understand in a post-apocalypse, a lot of everything is going to kind of be picked over.
Mm-hmm.
But I still felt like a lot of the fun of scavenging through the apocalypse, I know it's kind of silly to say it like that, but I would expect this to be kind of an enjoyable approach to the genre. And I didn't really get that in this game like I wanted. But all the parkour stuff is great. And since this is a port from really modern platforms to Nintendo Switch, this game came out on PlayStation 4 and Xbox One and PC, of course. And while obviously the graphics are scaled down from those platforms, I think it still looks very, very good on Nintendo Switch. I think it's a pretty darn good port. So overall, if you're looking for a good open world game, or if you're looking for a good zombie game on Nintendo Switch, this one hits both of those marks pretty darn well, I'd say.
The last one is DIO Field Chronicle.
The DIO Field Chronicle was, I don't know, was this one of the games that was the patron voted game?
Yes,
for that?
it was.
I think it was, yeah. This is a really interesting take on a strategy RPG because it is a real-time strategy RPG. And very anime-esque. The characters are all kind of anime style. I wasn't too thrilled with the strategy elements of this game. It didn't really feel like there was much strategy. It seemed like your best strategy most of the time was just to kind of brute force your way through enemies one at a time. But looking at it more like an RPG with kind of a real-time element, it was pretty fun, I thought. And really polished, well done. I liked it. Very, very good.
Nintendo Switch Online expansion packs, the Nintendo 64 app releases for October, includes Pilot Wing 64.
Yeah, well, they usually just do one Nintendo 64 release per month.
Mm-hmm.
Although I think they skipped September, I want to say.
Interesting.
Yeah, but I'm super pleased with this month's release. Pilot Wing 64... Graphically, of course, it doesn't look anywhere near as good as it did when it first came out. But if you can look past the graphics, I feel like this game has aged extremely well. It's still a magnificent flight sim style game. It's a little on the short side, but it's really fun. A lot of variety in gameplay, really good physics. It's not super realistic, but games don't have to be realistic to be fun. And this is definitely a really fun flight sim. One of the best additions to the Nintendo 64 app since that app was first released.
Okay, now we can move on to the discussion segment.
Yes, now you can get to, I guess, what you've been waiting for.
Well, it is spoopy season.
Spoopy?
Spoopy.
Spoopy?
It is spoopy season. And...
Is that a word you just invented now, spoopy?
No. Maybe.
Maybe.
Anyway, Halloween happens to be my favorite holiday.
For those who are listening, we're recording this prior to Halloween. You will be listening to it just after Halloween or perhaps a week later.
Perhaps. Anyway, do you have a favorite horror game?
Oh, I have tons of favorite horror
Okay,
games.
just list 3.
Why would you do that to me?
3.
What if I refuse to be restricted in such a way?
Then I will mute the microphone.
You wouldn't dare. I'm going to have to edit that out. That's going to be super loud. For those who are listening to the podcast, Jen just slapped the mic a couple of times and probably made a super loud noise.
I did not slap the mic.
You totally slapped the mic.
I did not.
You absolutely did. That mic would be suing for assault and battery right now if it were capable of doing that. You are a very hostile and abusive person.
Three favorite horror games. 3.
So am I restricting myself to the Nintendo Switch, or am I just going for everything?
Everything.
Okay. I have to start with the one that is absolutely positively got to be on this list. There are others that jump to my mind and keep going, back and forth in there, but there's one that absolutely, if I do not mention this, I will be doing myself and the entire world a disservice.
Okay.
Because the entire world is listening to this, I'm sure. You can probably already guess, if you have any idea about horror games, Silent Hill 2 is arguably the best horror game ever made. Obviously, this is partly because it is a really scary game. It has really great, the sound design is magnificent in this game. The imagery is super creepy and scary. Of course, it has the typical Silent Hill thing, which is there's a lot of fog. There's a lot of areas that are dark. You have a lot of rusty chain link fence and empty wheelchairs and creepy critters moving around in the darkness where you can't see them, but you can hear them. And this was back when the series was still doing what was basically, for all intents and purposes, a monster radar, where you couldn't see your enemies, but you had a radio that hissed static whenever one got close to you. So it's like, even if you can't see them, they're close. Where are they? Which direction are they coming from? Do they see you? Dunno, but they're close. That in and of itself is great. But what really put Silent Hill 2 a world beyond other games in the genre was its incredible story. I'm going to try and be succinct here. The Silent Hill series has a really ridiculous, convoluted story and a lot of lore into why the town is as messed up as it is, and how it works, and how it operates, and how the different forces within it manipulate these demonic, weird vibes within the town to cause things to happen. And Silent Hill 2 basically says, okay, Silent Hill 1, you've established how the town works. Now we're going to create a completely separate story within that town that's not really related to any of that stuff. It's going to work with the same rules, but you don't really need to know any of the different warring factions or different people who live within this town, because this doesn't have to do with that. This is a town on a normal day when people aren't fighting over the fate of the town or anything like that.
Okay.
You play a character named James, who has gotten an invitation to this town from his wife, who is talking about it fondly and saying that she really misses the town and she'll meet him there. His wife, who's been dead for some time. And so James, understandably, is like, what the heck is even going on here? Could this be real? Is this my wife? I'm not going to spoil the story. Even though this game is decades old at this point, if you have not yet played it, do yourself a favor and play it. It is worth playing through. Or if you're a little scaredy cat like Jen, maybe sit in a corner and watch someone else play it, or watch a playthrough or something. But I will give you a little bit of a spoiler, which is the events that happen in the game, the enemies that you face, the plot that unfolds is like a morality play, where everything has a reason for what is happening. All of the things that happen to the protagonist are happening because of something that relates to his past, and I'm not going to get much more into that, but suffice it to say that this game has very strong themes that you don't even necessarily notice until they kind of coalesce toward the end, and you realize, oh, that's what's happening here. And it's just this beautiful moment of realization that everything that seems weird and creepy and random and strange has all been happening for a reason. It's just so beautifully done in this game that presents the horror elements so well. Everyone who plays this game pretty much just absolutely loves it because it does everything right. So that has to be one of the 3 that I mentioned.
Gosh.
Yeah, you're going to limit me to 3. I'm going to talk about these games.
Okay.
The second game I have to mention is PT. And PT is kind of an interesting case. Konami, back when they actually made video games, Konami released this demo called PT. Didn't really say anything about it. They're just, here, go ahead and give it a try. And the demo really seems simple. In fact, if I describe the bare basics of it, it'll sound boring. You spend the entire demo, the entire game, walking through an endlessly looping corridor. You just walk pretty slowly, actually. You come to a corner, you turn the corner, you go down a staircase, you open the door, and you're back in the corridor you started in. There's not really anything else to do. You're not interacting with anything, more or less. You're not touching anything. There aren't any monsters that you need to hide from or attack. But as you're walking around, there are minute changes that happen to the corridor and the rooms that are connected to it. You might round the corner, and as you round the corner, you see that the bathroom that's on the corner is cracked open. And you look over at it, and it quickly shuts closed. And you're like, okay, I don't know what that was about. And you might come around one time, and the radio that's on the entryway counter is on, and it's talking about this family that got violently murdered.
Oh, lovely.
And then you walk around the corner one time, and this overhead chandelier light is just very slowly rocking back and forth. It's like these little, very subtle touches, but they're subtle touches that you always notice because you're repeating the same pattern over and over again, and these tiny little changes make themselves known to you. And is discovered after the fact that this demo, this game, was doing some extremely clever things behind the scene to switch up the way that it plays. Like, it would track your eye movements as you're looking around in the environment, and it would use that to determine what it's changing in each rotation.
Interesting.
And, every time you go through, it's a little bit creepier, a little more ominous, and nothing ever actively threatens you, but it's got this extremely creepy vibe that's just closing in on you. And the entire time you're just walking around in an endless loop, and you're like getting this feeling, is my character going insane? There's no way that the geometry of this would work out, because you move forward, you take a right turn, you go through a straight door, and you're back where you started. That is not a full loop. So something is wrong with the geometry of this world. It's just the subtlety, and it's not doing anything to jump out at you and scare you. It's all just creeping you out and making everything more and more like filled with dread as you go. And eventually you go through and you finish the demo. And then when you finish the demo, it shows you a short little clip of this character that is modeled on The Walking Dead's Norman Reedus. And you see his name come up on the screen, so you know that he's involved with this game.
Mm-hmm.
And you see the name Hideo Kojima, who's well known for making the Metal Gear Solid series.
Mm-hmm.
And then it finally reveals that while this little game called PT was actually a demo for Silent Hills, an upcoming sequel to the Silent Hill series. So now, if you're not experienced with this, if you're not familiar with this, you might be wondering why I'm saying one of the best games is a demo and not the actual game itself. And that is because the actual game itself never came into existence. Hideo Kojima was working on this game for Konami. Everyone was super looking forward to it, super excited for it. Oh, this is going to be the best thing ever. It's a combination of the Silent Hill series, which is already great, and Hideo Kojima, who makes some really wacky stuff that's really creative. And the demo was so amazing. And Hideo Kojima and Konami had a massive, massive public falling out. It's not clear what happened, but what we saw was Konami acting super, super petty towards Hideo Kojima. They started taking his name off of the packaging for games that he'd made. They refused to allow him to make an appearance at a game award where he was winning an award due to like NDA stuff. Just really, really petty, mean-spirited stuff. But the really pettiest move of all, not only did they cancel the game Silent Hills, which everyone was disappointed about, they removed PT from digital storefronts. One of the best horror games, even just the demo, was one of the best horror games ever made. And now it is no longer available in any form unless you manage to go the Yarmy Mateys route.
Mm-hmm.
Really petty, really messed up. And then at this point, Konami kind of went into their nosedive and just did nothing good for years. However, there looks like there might, maybe, be a light at the end of this tunnel, because as of this month, Konami has made an announcement that they will be bringing back the Silent Hill franchise after many years of nothing. They're working with Bloober Team, who did the game The Medium, and they did Observer and the Layers of Fear series. They're working with Bloober Team on doing a remake of Silent Hill 2, kind of sprucing it up for modern release. And they're releasing multiple new Silent Hill games as well. And they're doing a new Silent Hill movie based on Silent Hill 2, apparently. Which is kind of weird because I thought they already did a movie based on Silent Hill 2 like once or twice, which wasn't very good as I understand it. But in the meantime, yeah, I think PT, despite only being a demo, is one of the best horror games ever made. See, you're going to limit me to just saying 3, and I'm going to go into detail.
Is there a third one?
Yes, there is.
Okay.
So I could say any number of games for my third one, but the one that comes to my mind, and I wanted to have at least one Nintendo Switch game in here. Mm-hmm. The other two are not on Nintendo Switch in any form. This next one is, and in fact, the Nintendo Switch version of this game is arguably the best version of the game, at least outside of the PC version, because it was released so far after the other versions of the game that they were able to use some really good, efficient coding to round out some of the edges in the game, fix like the aliasing issues that were going on in the game, make the visuals look a lot smoother. And of course, it has all the content from prior releases as well. I haven't actually named the game yet, have I?
Mm-mm.
The game in question is Alien Isolation. So, Jen, you might recall I had you watch the very first Alien movie. Jen, for those listening, is not a fan of horror films.
I am not.
She is a little scaredy cat.
Yep.
And she had a lot of trouble making it through Alien. And I really wanted her to see the second Alien movie because Aliens is in some ways even better than Alien. I still have not been able to convince her to do it.
Nope.
I'm still working on it. We'll get there someday. But
good luck.
Once we have gotten her to see the second Alien movie, really only the first 2 Alien movies are worth watching. Let's be honest here. At that point, then I need to get her to play Alien Isolation, because Alien Isolation is the best game based on that franchise, in my opinion. I would say it's closer to the first Alien movie in terms of its tone. You are on this massive spaceship that has just been absolutely wrecked, and you're trying to find a way back to your repair ship that's been summoned out there. And of course, the reason why it's been absolutely wrecked is because the alien, the xenomorph, the whatever we're calling it from the franchise, has been let loose on it. And again, they did some really clever stuff with it here, where it's actively hunting you through the station. And depending on the platform you're using, like I know on the Xbox One version, it's actually using the Kinect, where if you're going into a hiding spot, you need to actually be quiet, because if you're too loud, the microphone will hear you and the alien will hear you through the microphone and come to get you. The Nintendo Switch makes good use of motion control if memory serves, and there's some other stuff as well, but basically just the atmosphere is so perfect, and it is such a good, fully realized version of the world of the films. Like, the spaceship that you start out on looks like a carbon copy of like much of the spaceship that was in the first movie.
Great.
Oh, it is amazing, and it is so super creepy. I don't want to go too far into the story because, spoilers and all that, but suffice it to say, there's a reason why this is the best, most faithful game based on the franchise. And it's like it honors the story and it honors the atmosphere of the movies so beautifully.
Okay.
There's my 3 games.
Thank you.
Do you regret asking me to do that?
No,
now?
I'm a little bit, uncomfortable because, those were some good picks.
Really?
Yeah.
You say that without even having played them, huh?
Yeah.
Okay. Why, do you have 3 favorite horror games, Jen? Have you even played 3 horror games total? I know you've played at least 1.
So, I am a scaredy cat. I am not afraid or ashamed to admit it. I don't do horror movies, pretty much at all.
Mm-hmm.
I normally don't do horror games at all.
Mm-hmm.
However, if I'm forced to pick between the 2, I will play the freaking horror game.
Because you have some agency.
Some agency, some control, some, I can choose not to go into the door. Hopefully the
Unless
game,
that's the only
unless
way to go.
I'm railroaded into it, yes. So my very first horror game was House of the Dead on the Dreamcast.
Oh, I had not expected you to say that.
Really?
No, I expected you to say another game that I know you've played more recently. Of course, House of the Dead, okay, it technically qualifies as a horror game.
Oh, yeah.
But the atmosphere is more cheesy than horror, I think.
I mean, it was back in the early 90s.
Just the cheesy voice acting alone.
Oh, yes. But the thing was, despite being a scaredy cat now, I was playing it with my brother at the time, and I was far braver than he was. And he was only a year younger than me. But that's my earliest horror game.
All right.
What horror games have I played since then? I do play some zombie games, but I wouldn't say that they create that type of horror atmosphere.
Sometimes they do.
Sometimes.
I think often the Resident Evil games are pretty scary.
Usually,
okay, let me rephrase. The early Resident Evil games. Once it got to be Resident Evil 5 and later, then it became more action.
I really don't know if I've played a Resident Evil game, and no, I am not volunteering. What else have I played? I've been playing Grounded lately.
That's not a horror game, is it?
It, funny enough, has a horror tag on it.
Okay.
And those of you who are not familiar with Grounded, it is basically Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. And 4 kids.
Plus Fortnite, right? Because you're building stuff?
I mean, Fortnite is a battle royale with crafting. That's basically what it is. But, so you're basically playing as one of 4 kids who have gotten shrunk and are trying your best to get out of somebody's backyard. And you are at the mercy of the backyard that you are placed in.
All right.
Which for some reason has a varied population of insects.
Well, I would tend to think most backyards probably do.
But the horror element comes from the people who are arachnophobes.
Okay, so there are spedidders in the game.
Yeah, there are spedidders in the game, and when nighttime comes, it is kind of frightening because you'll hear random things moving in the night and really odd sounds like chirping and chittering and all that stuff because...
Wait, chirping and what?
Oops, chittering.
Wow, okay. I'm leaving that in, but it's got to get bleeped.
Oh, yeah.
Chirping and... Man, if I hear an insect doing that, I'm seriously going to be wondering.
You can't leave that in. You can't.
Oh, I've got to.
No, you can't.
I'm leaving it in, but it's getting bleeped.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough.
Wow.
But anyway, yeah, that's the most recent horror game I've been playing.
Okay.
I can't think of others, honestly.
That's funny. There was another one I was almost positive you were going to name.
I don't remember.
I don't want to influence you, but you do have one more pick left.
What was the one that you were thinking of?
You need to pick first.
No, I really don't remember.
You don't remember any other horror games you've played? Not even any that you maybe streamed and screamed about?
Oh, Phasmophobia.
Yes.
Oh, wow. I cannot believe I forgot about that.
I can't believe you forgot it either.
Yeah. So, oh, I am known as the truck goblin in that game.
What does that even mean?
So, Phasmophobia, if you're not familiar with the premise, it's basically ghost hunters with, the EMP equipment or EMF equipment gone real. The ghosts will kill you if you don't do things correctly. And you go to the location. It could be just a house, a school, a prison, a mental asylum. And all your stuff is set up in a truck. It's the safe zone.
Mm-hmm.
And I am the truck goblin because that is where I stay most of the time.
You still do a fair amount of screaming, right? I know there was one clip I saw where you were screaming your head off and everybody was laughing at you.
Yeah, I need to find that clip.
Yeah, it was a pretty good one.
All
right, anything else you want to say on the topic before we move on?
I think we are good.
Okay.
So, Jake and I were talking about what to give as a gift to somebody who is a gamer, but said person cannot afford to give them an actual game.
Oh, that wasn't quite how you phrased the topic to me.
I could have sworn that's how I phrased it.
You didn't say can't afford thing. See, well, I look at the topic like this. Like, most people in the holidays, let's say most parents know that their kid's a gamer. I mean, kind of hard to not notice that.
Yeah.
But maybe don't know what to get their kid, especially because it's like, well, they have a gazillion games. What if I get them a game they already have? Or how do I know what games they're even interested in? So I was looking at this topic like, you're getting a gift for a gamer, but maybe you don't want to get them a game because
that is one way to look at it. Yeah. So I ran into this problem because I would have people who ask me, like, who does this person like? And I'm like, well, they like games. And they're like, okay, can you show me their wish list? And I show them their wish list. And they're like, I can't afford to get this game for them. I only have like $20-$30 to give them. And I'm like, sorry.
Well, see, this puts me in mind of, like, there are two different questions that we're each asking here. I'm going for the what do I get the guy who has everything question, and you're going for the what do I get the guy when I only have, or girl, don't mean to gender this person, or non-binary for that matter.
Yeah.
What do I get the giftee, the recipient of my gift, if I do not have more than $20 or $30?
Yeah.
So I'd say let's address each of these questions in turn. And I should start by saying, do you have any answers that you have in mind for one of these? Since you've had to be on that side of things.
I think memorabilia or just posters are really nice. Small decorative pieces. I was going to say amiibos, but those are a little bit expensive for what they are.
Depending. Depending. Like, you can get some use out of amiibos, especially if you know that it's for a game that a person really likes to play a lot and that uses amiibos. And I would say double check and make sure that the game uses amiibos without assuming, because there are a lot of games, like the Pokemon games, do not use Pokemon amiibos to my knowledge, outside of a select few.
Wow, I figured they would have capitalized on that.
Not all the games do. So double check amiibo compatibility with the game before getting it.
Okay. Other things that I've looked at are accessories and peripherals, like mouse pads. Those are nice.
Maybe not for Nintendo Switch owners, but if you're PC gifts.
If you're a Nintendo Switch owner, you can get the little caps for your joysticks. I've seen those. Those are cute, okay?
I have a very different opinion on this, but I'll let you finish.
Oh, really? What's your opinion?
Okay. So I'm sure that there are some gamers who might appreciate the sorts of gifts that you're talking about. But I know for me personally, number one, getting posters and statues and memorabilia does not interest me at all. I am not the kind of person who wants a bunch of clutter and knickknacks. I might have a few just that I happen to have gathered over the years, but it is not something that I actively want more. When I get a video gamey thing, generally I want something practical. And on that note, I don't generally find analog stick cover things to be super practical.
So, this is where I disagree with you. And this particular subject got me in trouble with my brother.
I mean, I know that you disagree with me. I just basically said I have a different opinion than you.
I think they are very practical because I have torn into those joysticks with my nails before.
Okay.
And the little caps protect it.
So when it comes to inexpensive gifts for gamers, since we're tackling that first, it sounds like, there is one that's kind of a cop-out, but I have to mention it because it is one that will pretty much always be appreciated, even if it's
I think I know what
lacking
you're gonna
originality,
say.
lacking thought, which is gift card. I hate getting gift cards as gifts because it basically says I put zero thought into this.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a bit of a catch or exception here where I feel like there's maybe some kind of like maybe acceptableness to it. If you happen to get gifts at Costco, you can get 4 Nintendo gift cards that are $25 each for $90 or $80. Sometimes they have a sale, which I know is more expensive than we just talked about. But if you have 4 different gamers you're getting gifts for, you are saving money on the gift that you're getting them. And you're getting them each a $25 card for less than $25.
Mm-hmm.
Again, not exactly a super thought-filled gift, but it is one that's going to be useful for just about everyone. Anyone who has a Nintendo Switch can make use of a Nintendo card for something. There are a gazillion games that you can only get online that you can't get in physical form, or at the very least are easier to get online or go on sale more often online.
Mm-hmm.
For other inexpensive gifts,
micro SD cards.
Micro SD card was another one that did come to my mind.
Mm-hmm.
That was going to be one that I was going to recommend for gamers of any price. But for this, what you would want to do is, when the gift recipient is not looking, take a look at their Nintendo Switch. There's a slot on the underside of the Switch. It's actually behind the little kickstand, and you need to kind of pry it open. It's not super convenient to get open. I'm talking about the regular Switch model. I don't know about the other Switch models. But once you get behind the kickstand, that's where the micro SD card is. And if you see a micro SD card in that slot, go ahead and pop it out and have a look at it, because if you're going to get them one, you're going to want to get them one that's bigger than the one they already have, of course.
Mm-hmm.
If they don't have one in there, well, you're golden. Just get them one of any size, or preferably the biggest size that you can afford,
Mm-hmm.
or that's within your budget. Me, having downloaded a gazillion games, I have the biggest size micro SD card possible. I want to say I think it's a 1 terabyte card.
Ooh.
It's like $250, I think, was what I paid for it. It's ridiculously expensive. So know that a micro SD card is something where you can spend a little. You can get them cheap. You can get them under $20 or $30 easy. Or if you want to go for something super premium, you can get a really high-end card that has a lot of space on it. There are a few things you should know about micro SD cards. First of all, some micro SD cards are branded with Nintendo stuff on it, like they'll have little Mario symbols or something. You do not need to get a card that is Nintendo licensed or branded. In fact, if you get one of those, you are paying more money just for the Nintendo branding that won't make a bit of difference to actually using the thing. The thing you should look for is you are looking for a micro SD XC card. I believe that's what it is. You just want to have a good micro SD card, basically. There are different cards that have like different read speeds on them, but I think they're all pretty much above the necessary minimum that the Switch needs. And yeah, just go for a large size one, especially if this is the kind of person who downloads a lot of stuff off of, the eShop, or conversely, if they tend to buy games that require a big patch or download. And specifically, I'm thinking sports gamers. If you buy a sports game like the NBA 2K series games for Nintendo Switch, all of those require a massive download in order to play those games. They will need a decent micro SD card in order to store more than a few of those. It's ridiculous that it does that, but it does that.
Okay.
So now we've talked about getting gamer gifts on a budget.
Now we can talk about something other than getting them a game as a gift.
Well, yeah, getting a gift for someone who you don't know what games they want, or you want to get them something other than a game. You're right.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And the thing you mentioned earlier, and we talked about this a little before, was controllers.
Mm-hmm.
On Nintendo Switch, there are a few controllers I can point you to that are going to be the cream of the crop. So when it comes to controllers, there are 3 types, I guess I should say, or brands that come to my mind as the cream of the crop. The first one is just a single controller. It is the one that I tend to use for all of my gaming on Nintendo Switch, unless it forces me to use the Joy-Cons. And that is Nintendo's own Nintendo Switch Pro controller. It doesn't do anything super special. It's just like a normal controller, and it's kind of pricey. Well, no, it is pricey.
Yeah.
I think it normally sells for like $80.
Mm-hmm.
But it is a very good controller. Like I said, it doesn't have any bells and whistles, but it is just a well-crafted controller that works very well. It's comfortable in the hands. And if someone has a Nintendo Switch and doesn't have one of these, I feel like it is an excellent, excellent gift if they spend a lot of time gaming on their Switch. However, if you're not looking to spend $80 on one controller, there are some other very good ones that you can go for. The next one that I would recommend, I would actually say Xlean has some really good controllers.
Hello, sponsor.
I was going to mention that. I was not going to let that slide. Yes, Xlean is one of our Patreon patrons. We mentioned it earlier in the episode. I am not just mentioning them because they handed money to me, which they did. I'm honestly saying that. I'm not trying to hide from it. I would be recommending Xlean controllers even if that were not the case. They make very good controllers, but even more than that, their most recent controllers for Nintendo Switch do something that most third-party Nintendo Switch controllers do not do. They have all of the features of Nintendo's own Switch Pro controller. And by that I mean they read amiibo figurines, which not all Nintendo Switch controllers that are from third parties do. But more to the point, you can actually use the Xlean controller to wake your Nintendo Switch from sleep mode. That is, for whatever reason, something that only Nintendo controllers did until Xlean started doing it. And even some of their more unusual controllers, like one of the controllers from them that I reviewed, which was a GameCube style controller, presumably for Smash Brothers players who are used to that. Although now you actually have a few GameCube games on Switch, like in the Super Mario 3D All-Stars, you had Super Mario Sunshine, for example. That one can wake the Switch from sleep mode. Xlean also has kind of it feels a bit cheaper than the Switch Pro controller, if I'm perfectly honest, but it plays perfectly well, and Jen stole it from me because she loved it so much. I gave it to you. I'm not saying you literally stole it.
I was about to say, what?
You said you really liked it. So.
I did, and I still have it. I still use it. Thank you.
So, yeah, we both really enjoy Xlean controllers. It's a great deal cheaper than Nintendo's own and a good lower-priced alternative that still does a lot of the same stuff and some more. Like, it has turbo features. Mm-hmm. I've got to be perfectly honest. Every now and then, I use my Xlean GameCube controller just so that I can turn on the turbo feature for one of the idle games I play and leave it so it's tapping the button repeatedly while I'm doing something else.
So I actually prefer the Xlean controller over the Nintendo Pro controller.
Why is that?
Something with the triggers.
Okay.
That I like.
All right, fair enough.
Yeah, it just feels better in my hands.
If I'm perfectly honest, I slightly prefer the Switch Pro controller, but I can definitely see a strong argument for Xlean's own controller because just the difference in price alone, I'm not sure what it's going for now, but I know it's got to be cheaper than the Switch Pro controller. And just so it's not me puffing up the third-party controller that happens to donate money to my Patreon, I will mention a third controller that this company is the one that everyone will point to as being one of the big controller makers for Nintendo Switch that actually makes really good quality product, and that is 8-Bit Do. Or 8-Bit Do, I'm not sure the pronunciation there. But they make a Pro-style controller that is also very good, has a lot of features, like there's a lot of programmability behind it if you want to get into that. It doesn't wake the Switch from sleep mode, so that kind of has me feeling like I like X-Lean's controller a bit more. But aside from that, it is right up there with it. It is very, very good. I forget what that's called. It's just the 8-bit Do. Maybe it's just the 8-bit Do Pro controller. I don't recall specifically. I reviewed one of them, so you can look it up on my hardware reviews. So that's, as far as controllers go, what I would recommend. Let's see. Is there anything else that I would recommend as a non-game item for Switch owners?
I mean, charging ports. I see that you have a couple of ways to charge your Joy-Cons.
Yeah, if you get extra Joy-Cons, you're going to need a way to charge them. Those are fairly inexpensive, so those we could have actually mentioned in our first little segment on this. Although you did remind me of one other thing. This is a pricey item, but it's well worth getting if you have someone who's serious about their Nintendo Switch playing, and that is Nintendo Switch docks. If you have someone who's going to want to bring their Switch from one TV to another, it's going to be so much more convenient for them if they have a dock at each of those TVs. Unfortunately, the docks are also ridiculously expensive. However, here's where I can alternately recommend another product that works very, very well, but I haven't reviewed because there's not really much to say about it. And that is the Genki Covert Dock, I believe it's called. This is a small item. It's not shaped like a Nintendo Switch dock. It's just like a little box and you can plug cords into it.
Kind of like triangular shaped.
I wouldn't say triangular. It's a little box shape, I think.
Yeah.
But it's designed to be small so that you can carry it in your luggage and bring it wherever with you. So it's easy to plug into a TV in a hotel or whatever. And it's also, if memory serves, it's less expensive than Nintendo's own dock. So if you have someone who likes to play their Nintendo Switch on the go, and I should note, who does not have a Switch Lite, because Nintendo Switch Lite does not work with a dock, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But if they have any other model of Switch, including the most recent OLED model Switch, all of those work with docks. All of them work with the same docks. Even though the OLED model comes with its own special dock, all the docks work the same and they're interchangeable. If you have someone who is a serious Nintendo Switch gamer and might like to play on more than one TV or likes to travel and play in hotels, getting an extra dock, including that Genki Covert dock, really good gift idea. And on that note, if they do like to travel with their Switch and they don't have a case...
Oh, please get a case.
Yeah, you probably want them to get a case.
Please get a case.
Because, man, it would be just heartbreaking for them to be walking around with their Switch and then drop it and that screen cracks.
Oh, that makes my heart hurt.
On that note, also, and you should have gotten one of these at launch, but if they like to play their Switch at all when it's not docked, they should have a screen protector on that, just like you have for your phone. Hopefully you have one of those for your phone.
I hope so.
Anyway, I think that makes for a pretty decent list. Obviously, someone opening up a controller, a Switch dock, that might not have the same wow factor as getting that game you've been just dying to play. But if you just don't know what game they want, or you don't want to get them gift cards, or you don't know if they have that game yet, whatever, these are some good alternatives. And even if someone already has a Switch Pro controller, can't hurt them to get another one, especially if they play with friends.
Yeah.
If someone already has a extra Switch dock, well, maybe they want to play an additional room. I don't know. Heck, even getting an extra micro SD card, they might want to hot swap them and store different games on different cards. So these are gifts that I think would work even if you don't know whether or not they already have it. Although I did already tell you how to find out if they have a micro SD card in your Switch. So you have no excuse for that one.
All right. So that wraps things up for this month's eShopper Reviews podcast. Again, we want to thank all of our patrons on Patreon for contributing. Patreon donors are the first ones to gain access to these podcasts. And if you're interested in becoming a donor, please check out our Patreon page at patreon.com/eShopperReviews. And once again, if you're curious to read any of the reviews or content mentioned in this podcast, you can find it on the eShopper Reviews subreddit at reddit.com/r/eShopperReviews. Once again, this has been Jen Ip.
And Jake McNeil.
We'll see you all next month, and in the meantime, we both hope you found this content helpful and enjoyed some good games. Catch you all next time.
Later.
Yay!